Hey everyone, you guys made it just in the nick of crime. Let me know if y'all can hear me, because I don't know if it is my headphone wire or if it is not my headphone wire. Or you guys can't hear me. So let me know. This is for the YouTube, Facebook, Instagram folks here. But we have a big day, midday recap. We are trying to get back into these things now that I am back. All right, Patty says we can hear me, so we are good to go. So it is day whatever of the Diddy trial. It is May 28th, 2025. It is the midday recap. There's a lot going on. Real quick for my Instagram folks that are rolling in, YouTube, Facebook, because we got you guys back on now, TikTok especially. TikTok, please tap that screen. We are so close to that 10,000, and I appreciate y'all for that. If you are watching me for the first time on YouTube, TikTok, Facebook, Insta, wherever you are, please hit that follow button. Please, if you're on YouTube, especially hit that notification button, that bell, so you know when I go live and you don't miss these. Now, if you are new here, know that all of these, when I go live like this, they are all recorded on YouTube. So if you come in late, can't stay for the whole thing, or miss it altogether, you can always go to the Diddy playlist on my YouTube and watch these later at the same time. You can also catch them on Substack, because I do typically put these notes there as well. Now, that being said, a couple quick announcements of things that are going on. First is a quick reminder for those of y'all watching wherever you are. TikTok, this is a lot easier for y'all than everybody else, but we are going to have Anna Maria Baralt on tomorrow night at 8 p.m. Central Time on TikTok Live. I will try to get that on YouTube after it's done, but we're going to have, she's the cousin and spokesperson for the Menendez brothers. So if you want to come to that live, you can register it by going to a link in my profile. You'll see where it says live. You can register for it so you get notified. That is on TikTok. You're not going to want to miss it. If you have questions you want to ask her, she is okay taking even the tough or more taboo questions as long as you're respectful about it. So just to let you know about that. Now, that being said, yesterday, somebody asked what time it is. That's going to be 8 p.m. Again, 8 p.m. Central Time tomorrow, which is going to be May 29th for anybody who's watching this later. Cassie had her baby, y'all. If you remember yesterday, we did a video or talked about this in the live as well, that Cassie had gone into labor. They had gotten her off the stand just in time while she had her baby. We know that it's a boy. We don't have any other information really outside of that. We had heard earlier on that there were complications possibly, but it sounds like everything's gone forward. We haven't seen any photos yet, though not that we are entitled to as the public to see those. But we don't have those yet or any information. But if and when we do, I will make sure to come back on and, of course, do a short, real TikTok video and let you guys know the updates on that. Now, let's go ahead and just jump right into this. Okay, let's just jump right into this. That was the cat. That was a picture that I should have for the baby. Whatever. I have pictures, by the way, on for my TikTokers on YouTube if you guys want to see the photos that we have today. So this was something that happened when Capricorn Clark was testifying yesterday. It was not in the notes from the previous day because, you know, unfortunately, with these things not being televised, we can go off of what is given to us. And this came out later of the fact. But apparently, during yesterday's testimony, Capricorn Clark kind of revealed something that was a little bit surprising, which is why I have Jay-Z's photo up here. And that is that she had an exchange with Cassie, Capricorn did, while being questioned by Mark Agnafilo. Capricorn Clark confirmed that Cassie had once expressed interest in dating Jay-Z, of all people. She said the conversation came up during a 2024 meeting with Diddy's attorneys when she recalled advising Cassie to leave Diddy and see other people. According to Capricorn, Cassie responded by saying Jay-Z is taken, implying that she didn't really see many other options. Agnafilo asked, "Do you remember saying that at the meeting you told Cassie you should move away from Diddy and date other people, right?" He followed up with, "And you said that to you that Jay-Z was, or she said to you that Jay-Z was taken, so who would she date?" And Clark said, "Yeah, she did say that." At the time of the alleged comment, Jay-Z was already married to Beyonce. Obviously, you guys know Jay-Z and Beyonce are very good friends with Diddy. The three of them are typically seen together. They were frequently seen together in the early 2000s, including several widely circulated photos from that early on time. So, so Don John makes a comment where he says, "Crush on Diddy and Jay-Z, two powerful rich men. Shocker." See, to me, that kind of is a comment that gives like victim blaming vibes. So I'm just going to address it real quick. When you're kind of in an industry like that, and that's who you're around, that's who you date, that's who your friends are, that's just kind of how it is. You know, I have plenty of friends who are in that industry, and I mean, I'm not, But I have plenty of friends who are in that industry, and guess what? That's kind of who you're around. So you typically express interest in that when you're on that level of fame with those people, which at that time that she was. So that's not really unheard of, especially when she was spending time around him when they were all together. So just kind of addressing that real quick. We don't victim blame. We don't victim blame around here, or shame, or say somebody who has just be. The thing is, if a men never say, it's always men that say comments like this. I'm going to put you up here. It's always men that say comments like this. And I'm not going to get it. That was going to keep going on. We're just going to keep going on. The other thing that I kind of wanted to talk about real quick, this is kind of an interesting thing. If you guys remember last week, it was last week or the week before, when they were talking to the exotic dancer, Sharay Hayes, who was the exotic dancer who previously testified about participating in these freak-offs alongside Diddy and Cassie, actually came out and publicly offered an apology to Cassie in what was a pretty emotional interview, and it was done on CNN. Hayes was speaking with CNN's Laura Coates. Hayes was asked, what would he say to Cassie now after hearing her account of the abuse she suffered during those encounters? And he said, I would apologize. I would apologize because I had no idea or no indication that what she was going through. And if, obviously my involvement kind of furthered her suffering, just the thought of partaking in a scenario where a woman is possibly being abused is tough to hear. So, I would just apologize to her and tell her I was really remorseful and regret if I contributed to a bad experience for her. She also, Hayes also said that at the time he believed Cassie and Ventura were simply just a happy couple with a fetish, that he never saw them show affection or interact directly during the encounters, and noted that he never witnessed any violence or recordings take place. He goes, as a professional dancer, he says he's trained to read the room, and claimed that during his involvement, Ventura didn't exhibit any cues of discomfort that he could perceive. Under cross in court, he previously testified that he didn't sense any distress from Cassie during the freak-offs, which typically involved acts in front of Combs and sometimes other guests. His remorseful tone on CNN is a little bit of a stark contrast from his testimony last week, but adds, kind of another layer into these allegations, so to speak. So that was kind of an important thing to bring up. Now let's get into what has been going on today. So as you all know, Capricorn Clark finished her testimony today. We knew that an LAPD officer was going to be the one testifying. And this is going back to that incident regarding Kid Cudi's car. This was the officer, Christopher Ignacio. His testimony basically is centered around that December 6, 2011 incident, in which allegedly Combs broke into Kid Cudi's West Hollywood home after learning of his romantic connection with Cassie. Officer Ignacio told the jury that when he arrived at Cudi's residence that day, he immediately noticed a black Escalade parked in the driveway with tinted windows. He said it was parked directly in front of the residence, and as soon as we arrived, it took off up the hill. That he and Cudi then entered the home together and filed a trespass report. So let me change the pictures here. I'm showing you guys the pictures today from some of the sketches and stuff that's going on today. The vehicle, Ignacio confirmed that black Escalade that they saw speeding off was in fact registered to Bad Boy Productions, which, as you all should all know by now, is Diddy's entertainment company, which also directly supports Tuesday's testimony from Capricorn Clark, who said that Combs forced her to drive him to Kid Cudi's house that day, and that he was inside the Escalade when it fled the scene. That was the Escalade. He saw it. So, however, on top of that, though, Ignacio's account also kind of contradicted part of Capricorn Clark's testimony. She claimed that after Diddy spotted Kid Cudi's Porsche pulling in, Cudi quickly reversed and left, prompting Diddy to follow him. But Ignacio testified that he did not see Cudi's vehicle in the area at that time. There was no car chase. Diddy's defense team seized on this discrepancy to call Clark's version of events into question. Of course, that's what their job is. Just in that key parts of her memory may be flawed or exaggerated, but the confirmation that Combs' vehicle was present and fled the scene still remains a significant detail in the prosecution's narrative that Diddy did in fact use intimidation and control, sometimes violently, to stalk, confront, and harass those around Cassie. Now, this was a pretty quick testimony. He was up for about an hour, and then they brought on a Los Angeles Fire Department arson specialist whose name is Lance Jimenez. And he took the stand immediately after, talking about the 2012 firebombing of the Porsche, Kid Cudi's car. A lot of this testimony right now is focused around that because I believe that Kid Cudi, what happened there, I think that's a real big part of this testimony and prosecution's proof of racketeering, which is what they're going for, those threats, intimidation, violence, etc. So, anyways, if you remember right, Kid Cudi said that he believed that Sean was behind the attack and that it occurred during a period that involved rising tensions because of Cassie, who he was dating at the time, right? So Jimenez, who has been a veteran of the department for 22 years, y'all are probably like, why are you showing this photo right now? But you'll see why in a second. He was one of the first responders at the scene. He described the explosive device that was used in the vehicle as a Molotov cocktail fashioned from a 40-ounce Old English 800 malt liquor bottle filled with gasoline and topped with a designer handkerchief, silky material serving as the fuse. The fuse proved less than effective than typical materials, which possibly explains why the bomb didn't ignite. So basically, for those of y'all who don't know, and I'll show a picture of the Porsche here. We've shown a few of these. He slashed a hole. Whoever did this slashed a hole in the top and dropped it in, and basically totaled the car. There was a bottle on the front seat and the cloth handkerchief in the center console. It was burned. Jimenez said that, in my opinion, this was targeted. The fire smoldered out and didn't cause the damage it was intended for. Even so, he described the risk in stark terms. If the fire gets big enough, it would have affected the home, causing the home to burn and the vehicle behind it. The foliage would have been more than exposed to heat, and that too would have caught fire. While the damage was less catastrophic than typical Molotov cocktail incidents, Jimenez left little doubt about the intent. He said this arson was deliberate and dangerous. He added that another vehicle parked nearby was untouched, which kind of underscores the precision of this attack, saying that, quote, someone targeted that car. That's what he said. Now, continuing to testify, the forensic analysis of the device offered yet another intriguing layer. Jimenez testified that while the DNA testing on the bottle, cloth, and lighter yielded few results, the bottle returned a partial DNA profile that was consistent with a female contributor. On cross-examination, defense attorney Mark Agnafilo implied that this result might have been why Jimenez reached out to Capricorn Clark, a former employee of Combs, who testified yesterday, his assistant. But Jimenez pushed back, saying that he did not believe the DNA findings had any bearing on the timing of his calls. Jimenez also made it clear that he was not a DNA expert and could not speak to the significance of the match. Still, the detail aligns with the prosecutor's broader argument that Combs orchestrated this and other acts using people close to him. Jimenez also said they made repeated attempts to contact both Cassie and Capricorn Clark in the months following the fire, but wasn't able to speak to either women. At the time, Ventura was dating Cudi and Clark was working for Combs. In one instance, Jimenez said that he reached out to Ventura's father, who is a firefighter himself, for those of you who might not know that, in hopes of facilitating a conversation. And another, after calling Clark's phone multiple times, her brother answered. According to Jimenez, Clark's brother became argumentative and told him to stop calling, saying that she wanted nothing to do with me, nothing to do with the investigation. Now, real quick, I want to pause here before I talk about what almost caused a mistrial, which we're going to talk about that here in a second. Or why I say almost caused a mistrial. The defense tried to get a mistrial on what we're going to talk about next. But that was one of the things that Capricorn said, that she didn't really speak to the investigator and that Cassie didn't really speak to the investigator. And part of that was fear of retaliation from Diddy. And as far as the partial fingerprint, remember, these are a couple Mad Dog bottles. Somebody stuck. I'm just trying to use logic here and sense, and I'm not saying that this is exactly what happened. But I think logically you can speak that somebody stocked the shelves. Typically with Diddy, he's very good about not leaving a trace. So I would imagine that gloves were probably used, which is why you might have had a partial female, maybe somebody stocking the store, and that was it. And that the DNA print might not have really been relevant on it because of him just basically being careful with everything. So that is my opinion. That is not necessarily a fact, but it's just something that I kind of wanted to make sure that we brought up, that they didn't want anything to do with this investigation or pulling Diddy into it. I mean, think about what Capricorn said yesterday about the jewelry that went missing, and she was taken to an abandoned warehouse, interrogated for 5 days essentially, and threatened to be thrown in the East River. This is not somebody that you wanted to really get on his bad side. And I think that's, again, part of what they're trying to prove here with this. So now one of the more dramatic moments of Jimenez's testimony came when he discussed fingerprint evidence that was discovered from a 2011 break-in at Kid Cudi's home. A separate incident that had occurred, weeks before the fire, that one the LAPD was talking about. Jimenez testified that 2 fingerprints were recovered from the home's front door and preserved on cards for later comparison with evidence from the arson. However, Jimenez revealed that the fingerprint cards were destroyed by an LAPD officer in August 2012. He testified that as a lead investigator, he would normally have to sign off on the destruction of any evidence he submitted, something that did not happen in this case. Think about what this said, okay? Think about what was just said here. In fact, let me reread this, okay? From the 2011 break-in December, a couple weeks prior to this Porsche incident, right? A separate incident. 2 fingerprints were recovered from the home's front door and preserved on cards for later comparison for evidence from the arson. However, those cards were destroyed by an LAPD officer in August of 2012. And that lead investigators typically would have to sign off on things like that. But it didn't happen. Why do y'all think why do you think that an officer would destroy it? Anyways, drop your thoughts in the comments. Anyways, the defense immediately objected to that. Sheila knows what I'm saying. Sheila gets what I'm saying. Y'all are here getting what they're saying. Yeah, exactly. Money, guys. Y'all get it. Y'all get it. Y'all get it. And that's been something that's been accused, that there were police officers on the payroll. One of them actually, who became a chief in Hawaii, was suspended while on investigation. I don't know what's happening with that. So, yeah, payoffs, guys. Payoffs. Diddy's got a lot of money. He knows how to use it, which again goes into why people are scared. This is where this racketeering stuff is starting to take shape. But nevertheless, for this particular thing about the fingerprint cards, defense immediately objected. And during a break, Judge Summarian instructed the jury to disregard all testimony related to the fingerprint cards, saying the questions regarding the destruction of fingerprint cards and answers given are irrelevant to the case. I disagree, and that this defendant and are not this case and this defendant and are not to be considered by you. Now, just because the judge says that, I mean, it's the judge's courtroom. They have to follow certain guidelines and rules. I personally think that it's very relevant to this case, especially a racketeering case. And if I was prosecution, I would have probably pushed that, but that's just me. Now, Mark Agnifilo, the lead defense attorney, accused the prosecution of making outrageous insinuations by implying someone in the courtroom may have had a role in evidence destruction. Basically, meaning that they're not saying the Diddy, but they're basically suggesting that they're alluding to Diddy having been involved in evidence destruction. There we go. Now, these testimonies, guys, from the LAPD and LAFD, these things really could play a really huge key role in establishing the prosecution's racketeering conspiracy charge. You know, when you look at Capricorn Clark testifying that she'd been kidnapped by Combs and taken to Kid Cudi's house, which is a narrative that the government's using to show a pattern of intimidation and violent retaliation. You know, it's important to remember that when Kid Cudi took the stand, he testified that he believed Diddy is the one who caused harm to his car. And when the prosecution has now help from, or having people from the LAPD and the LAFD come in, they can assess exactly what happened to the car and help substantiate the prosecution's position. Although there's no direct forensic link to Combs that's been established through arson evidence, Jimenez's testimony about the deliberate nature of the firebombing and failed outreach to key witnesses and the mysterious destruction of fingerprint evidence adds weight to the prosecution's central theme, which is that Combs operated as the head of a criminal enterprise that used fear, violence, and influence to silence or punish those connected to Cassie Ventura. Right? That's kind of what we see, right? Think about the hotel money. Exactly. Somebody said the hotel security was paid off. Everybody was paid off when he could. All of this stuff is huge in helping to build that case. So now, earlier today, because of all of this, the Diddy's team attempted to halt this federal trial with a mistrial motion. They basically attempted to call a mistrial, but they failed. Spoiler alert. The motion stemmed from the prosecution's line of questioning involving that 2012 arson incident. And basically, Diddy's lawyer, Alexander Shapiro, argued that outside the jury's presence, that the prosecutors were improperly suggesting that Combs had a role in destroying potential fingerprint evidence from the scene. The implication, she said, was, quote, highly prejudicial, end quote. But the judge swiftly denied the motion, stating there was absolutely no testimony from the witness that was prejudicial in any way, shape, or form. They're just like throwing things at a wall to see what sticks. Can you imagine? Can you imagine if a mistrial would have happened? I don't even know. I don't even know. Next up on the stand, and this is our last witness before they got to lunch, is is a celebrity stylist. His name is Deonte Nash. He's the next one who took the stand, and he offered a look into the years of the alleged emotional abuse, control, and intimidation. He says that he witnessed while working for Combs and Cassie, though Nash openly admitted he absolutely did not want to testify. What followed, though, was a damning account from someone who had been on the inside of Diddy's inner circle for a decade. But again, he's another one. This makes the second or third or fourth witness that has said that they are there, but they don't want to be there. They don't want to be testifying in this, but they're doing it anyways. And then you have witness number 3, which we talked about yesterday, who's very likely not going to show up, or victim number 3, who's not going to show up. So Nash goes on testifying that he began working with Combs and Ventura in 2008, first as a fashion intern at Bad Boy Entertainment, eventually becoming a full-time stylist, and he remained in that role until 2018. From the very beginning, Nash said it was clear that Combs exerted near total control over Cassie's life, what she wore, where she went, even how she styled her hair. One particularly vivid example came from a 2014 Vanity Fair Oscar party. Nash described how Cassie arrived with her hair worn down, and he said she was stunning. She looked bomb, her hair was down, but Combs was apparently furious. Nash testified that Combs grabbed me. He said, quote, he grabbed me by my jacket and lifted me up, grabbed him by his jacket and lifted him up off the ground. He then recalled that Combs demanded Cassie change her hairstyle on the spot. In a panic, Nash asked guests for hairpins and had other staff members help Cassie fix her hair in the bathroom. Ironically, once she emerged, Combs changed his mind, saying, "Oh, y'all was right. It does look better down." Flies off. Anyways, whatever. And that was not an I'm just not even. But that moment wasn't isolated. Nash told jurors that Combs regularly required Cassie's outfit photos to be sent to him for approval before any public appearance. He would pick which one he liked, and that was usually the one that we went with. He said it wasn't about fashion, it was about control. But it was the verbal threats that painted the most chilling picture, because Nash testified that he personally heard Combs threaten Cassie on multiple occasions, saying things like, "I'll beat her ass," or threatening to derail her music career. He would tell her he wouldn't put her music out, that he would get her parents fired from their jobs. He would send her S tapes to their jobs. And Nash said he would start. That's where he would start. That's what Diddy said. That's where he would start. Those threats had a deep emotional toll. She would cry. Sometimes she would just stay in the house for days and kind of go into a cocoon. She would be super emotional after each and every altercation, is how he describes it. After another disturbing incident that occurred in 2013 during a night out at a gay club in LA, Nash was with Cassie, British singer Rita Ora, and Adrienne Bailey-on Houghton. I don't know if I'm saying that right, of the Cheetah Girls. Suddenly, Cassie received a call from Combs, who was on speakerphone. Nash said Combs was enraged that Cassie had gone out without her permission, saying, quote, "She better bring her ass to his house." Nash remembered hearing Combs say this, and Cassie immediately packed up and left. Nash said it wasn't the first time that he had tried to control her movements. He recalled other times when Combs told them that they needed his permission just to leave the house. Despite the serious nature of this testimony, there was a moment of levity. At one point, prosecutors did show a photo of Nash wearing sunglasses and asked if it was a glamour shot. And he said, "Yeah, I look amazing," which drew some laughter from the jurors, which kind of broke the tension a little bit in a well-needed situation. But the gravity of Nash's words were quickly reasserted over and over again. His testimony emphasized the obsessive control Combs allegedly wielded over Cassie's appearance, schedule, and emotional state. What might have appeared to outsiders as, a glitzy celebrity relationship, Nash described from being very deep on the inside as a deeply coercive dynamic enforced through threats, manipulation, and fear. In the ongoing trial, Nash's insider testimony, in my opinion, has become just another key thread in the prosecution's case. I think that it really kind of drives the point home, everything that he's done in the way, he would say jump and she would say how high. And anybody who got in the way of what he wanted surrounding Cassie, he would threat. Again, Nash testifies that, at this thing, because of her hair, he lifts him, confronts him, gets in his face, and lifts him up by, his jacket off the ground. That's intimidating. That is fearful. But, Combs didn't just dominate Cassie professionally or romantically. He dominated every asset, every aspect, every facet of her life. Now, from here, they went to lunch, and there's still more testimony coming from Deonte Nash. But then supposedly Mia, who that's the name she's going by, is going to take the stand at some point today. Now, let me kind of tell you what we can kind of expect from Mia. She supposedly was going to be one of the most emotionally charged testimonies. That's what we're kind of hearing on the front end. She's a witness who, according to her attorney, is preparing to share the most painful and private moments of her life. She's again expected to take the stand today. Her lawyer is Michael Ferrer. She has painted a picture. He has painted a picture of the emotional toll this testimony will take, saying, quote, candidly, her nerves are through the roof. He explained that Mia is about to disclose the worst things that's ever happened to her, details so intimate and traumatic that she otherwise would have taken them to her grave. Ferrer expressed a deep concern for his client's well-being during her time on the stand, saying, I don't know how to support her if we can't discuss the pain she's going to experience from having to tell the world about her worst experiences. Her identity has been shielded for privacy, but the emotional weight of her testimony is already looming kind of already in this courtroom. If she proceeds, Mia's account is expected to be one of the most impactful yet, which will again add just another layer in the prosecution's, building block, whatever. I don't know what expression I want to use, but building their case, basically. So that's what we have. That's what we have for the day. In regard to this for the midday. Now, the court is back in session, so I will be back with end of day updates when that happens. Of course, again, if you guys are watching this on TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, or else we're missing Instagram, and you came in late, this is on YouTube right now. You can go back and watch from the beginning to see what you missed. Same thing with the end of day. If you miss it, it will always be there for you to watch, and you can follow on Substack where I will post these notes as well. That being said, y'all have a great rest of the day, and we will be back for the end of the day recap a little bit later. Bye, y'all.